maybe I should mention who's here right now with that kind of clap. So, starting with Chief Sherman, right to my right, we have Captain Ryan from Topanga Division, Captain Vernon from Topanga, Captain Cortez from West Valley, Lieutenant Hankel from West Valley, and Captain Neiman from Traffic are all here, and they're all here to answer your questions. And I should mention, we also have a lot of other great folks in blue who are here as well, and you know a lot of them. I hope you know a lot of them. We have senior lead officers. We have a number from the Topanga Division. Senior Lead Dow, Senior Lead Rye, McNamee, Senior Lead Ginsey, Senior Lead Moreno, Senior Lead Pepke, Lieutenant Monaco, Lieutenant David Smith. We have a lot of folks here. We have Commander Jorge Rodriguez is here as well. Very pleased. Thank you. Good to see you. From Hope, we have Sergeant Padilla. So I'm glad that there was such a great clap for when you talk about your senior leads and when you talk about the police. Because unlike a lot of areas of this city where the police are having issues with the community in some respects, or the community's having some issues with the police, in the West Valley, we embrace our police, and we love our LA police. And we know that they are out here every day fighting crime, working with us, doing community policing. You know, the senior lead officer creation is not that old. This is a relatively new thing that we've been able to put in place as a city, and it's been very effective, where the senior leads are freed up to deal with the community on a regular basis, get to know you personally, and be able to help resolve problems directly so that you have a name and a face. It's making a big difference. In LA, we're not just fighting crime the old-fashioned way, but the LAPD has been transformed over years, and it's a much smarter policing, whether it's using, you know, what they call cops on dots or crime stat, or any of the other ways, and they're going to talk about it. I don't want to steal anybody's fire on some of these issues. But we've also had issues with crime, and crime has been present for a long time. And anyone who's been a victim of crime knows that one crime is too many. How many people here have been a victim of crime? Yeah, I know it personally. I've had the mail stolen out of my. We once were away for 2 weeks. The mail stolen, a whole box full of mail. That set us back for a while. I've had my car broken into in front of my house. Like all of you, we are all painfully aware of what it means to be a victim of crime. And burglaries, one of the reasons that I think that there's so much interest in this meeting is that burglaries, we had an uptick this last year. And they're going to talk about the numbers. Again, I'm not going to steal your thunder. We've had some good news recently, which I'm not going to steal that thunder, but we've had, even though we're at historic lows, we've had this uptick in crime, and we feel it. And so we want to make sure that we're working and we're finding creative ways to support our police and to work together as a community. And I know that there have been some great neighborhood watches. How many people here are part of a neighborhood watch? That's awesome. There have been a number, in my district alone, I probably have over 100 neighborhood watches. And just last week, I see a couple of you who I was at the Topeka neighborhood watch group talking to about 30 or 40. Yesterday I was meeting with some folks from South Valley Neighborhood Watch, and that's a group that's grown this last year to 1,700 families. How many people are a member of that South Valley, Tarzana, South Tarzana Neighborhood Watch? Quite a few. So, and that's very impressive to have that many people engaged. That's the kind of thing that makes a difference. And you have a very active Facebook page, which you're able to communicate with each other, communicate about suspicious situations. That's the community coming together to make a difference. Now, as far as the city goes, we need to make sure we're doing everything we can as a city to support your efforts and to support the efforts of our PD. And that includes making sure that police are properly funded. I know as a member of the City Budget Committee, I'm very committed to making sure that we maximize the dollars for our police. Public safety makes up Anyone want to guess what percentage of the city discretionary money is? 70%. 70% of our city's discretionary dollars go to public safety. And even though we've had a couple of issues these last years, we managed to increase that budget every year for the last 3 years since I've been on the council. But that doesn't solve the problem. We have 500 square miles as a city. We are under-policed in that regard compared to other cities on a per capita or per square mile basis. So we have to be smart. We have to figure out how we can make that difference. We're finally back up to around 10,000 officers, which is very positive. Although Chief Beck says the number could or should be a little higher. This last year we did some creative things. We don't have enough money to necessarily hire additional officers, and it's getting harder to hire the officers. We can talk about some of those reasons. We're trying to get the officers that have been behind desks out into the field. And last year, one of the ways to do that was putting in money for more civilian hires. We had 300 civilian hires last year. The good news about that is every time you hire a civilian behind the desk and they replace an officer who could be out in the street, that's basically a discounted way of getting another person out in the street. But we want to make sure that we're getting people in the field. And one of the issues I get asked a lot about is deployment. They're going to talk about that issue. As a council member, as much as I'd like to send all the resources of the city to the West Valley, they don't let me make those decisions because every council member would do the same thing in their areas. But they'll talk about some of those issues. We'll also talk about some of the issues in terms of things that you can do, the lock it, hide it, keep it campaign, ways that we can be smarter about hardening our own targets. That's a term that Homeland Security uses, but how to make ourselves less vulnerable or less potentially, statistically, to become a victim, putting in cameras like the Ring doorbell. I use that at my house. It's a great product. I don't endorse any particular product, but that's a pretty awesome thing. And other issues. I know you want to talk about issues like Prop 47 and the impact that that's had. So we're going to try to do that. Coming to this, we had a lot of questions coming in. We asked people to email questions in advance, and you did. And I'm pleased about that. So we have a stack of cards. We tried to organize them by topic so we cover every topic that was asked. And we're also sending around cards to all of you so that if you come up with other things, you can pass those cards to my staff that are here, and they'll take those cards and bring them to me, and we'll try to get those questions asked and answered as well. So, without further ado, what I'd like to do is to hand it over, but I want to introduce Chief Sherman, who is our new chief for the Valley, and he's going to introduce the rest of the folks that are here. But it's important that we know about him. He is the top cop for the San Fernando Valley. And he's a second-generation LAPD officer. He went to school in our community. His father, Glenn, retired as a lieutenant in 1980. Before joining LAPD, he served 4 years of active duty in the United States Marine Corps. As a police officer, he worked as a patrol officer in the Rampart, Devonshire, and Hollywood areas. In 1990, he was promoted to sergeant and worked Central area, the Office of Operations, and also completed 2 tours of duty in Wilshire area as a patrol supervisor. He became a lieutenant in 1997, captain in 2001, and in 2007, he was named the area commanding officer of the soon-to-be 21st area of the LAPD Topanga area. Many of us remember that when he was getting us started with the Topanga area. So he is someone who knows our area, and we're very lucky and blessed to have him with us. During 2008, Commander Sherman headed up the transition team for Topanga area, helped identify the personnel, create the command, and mobilize the community for LAPD's newest area command. He then went to serve as the Assistant Commanding Officer of the Operations Central Command, and then was appointed as the Assistant Commanding Officer of the Office of Special Operations, overseeing the Jail, Property, and Security Services Division. We are lucky to have him serve as the Deputy Chief of the Valley Bureau. I could have just said, look, this guy's done it all, and that would have covered it. But without further ado, join me in welcoming the guy who has done it all, Deputy Chief John Stanton.
Councilman Blumenfield, thank you very much. Appreciate those kind words. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight and in support of the police department, in support of the city, and hopefully challenging yourself to bigger and better things and improving our community. The councilman gave an introduction on me, and it was very generous, but hopefully it covered a couple things that I want you to know, because I am relatively new. I'm in my 3rd week, and but I'm not new to the area. I was born and raised in Reseda. My dad was a police officer. I grew up here. I went to Cleveland High School. I played football here at Taft. I know this area, and I was a captain for 3 of the divisions. I was a captain at Devonshire Division, West Valley Division, and Topanga. So to say the least, I'm very, very pleased and enthusiastic to be back here in the Valley. And to come back here as the Chief of the Valley is quite an honor, and one I take very, very seriously, and I'm going to represent you very, very well as one of your police officers to do the best we can do to make this the safest community possible to live in. So what I want to do is I want to make a few remarks, and the councilman took a few of my thoughts, but I want to speak on them, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give the 2 captains of Topanga and West Valley an opportunity to talk and maybe get in a little more detail. But first, I just want to talk about the overall health of the command here in the Valley and these 2 police stations. I took over for Bob Green. Many of you know Chief Bob Green and Commander Chris Pitcher, who have moved on to bigger and better things within the department, and they have left Operations Valley Bureau in very good shape. The personnel, the commands, I've been out to a number of them already, and you are being policed very well. You have a good set of captains with Captain Maureen Ryan, who was my partner when I opened Topanga in 2009. She was the patrol captain. Her partner, Captain Paul Vernon, has worked all over the city, and both of them seasoned veterans and seasoned crime fighters. And then we have Captain Natalie Cortez, who is the patrol captain in West Valley area, with her partner tonight, Lieutenant Todd Henkel, who is the detective commanding officer. So he's in charge of investigating all the crimes that happen in the West Valley. Missing from this picture is Captain Beverly Lewis, who is the new commanding officer of the West Valley area, and she unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but she would like to be here to introduce herself, because she is relatively new. But Natalie has been in the seat, and Lieutenant Henkel has been in the seat, so you're in good hands. And then on the far end is Lieutenant Andy Nyman. Many of you know him. For many years, he was the PIO for our department, and he's been in front of the camera quite a bit. He is now in charge of all of the traffic resources in the entire San Fernando Valley. So he supervises all the motor officers and all the traffic investigators in the San Fernando Valley. I want to tell you, your officers that are standing here against the wall, your senior lead officers, your supervisors, they are working very, very hard in getting in policing the San Fernando Valley and the West San Fernando Valley. I walked through the crowd a little bit here this evening, and one of the remarks was an article somebody read relative to arrests being down in general in law enforcement in the state and in the nation. And I can tell you at this morning's crime control meeting that we have every Tuesday, both West Valley and Topanga area have more arrests this year than they did last year at the same time. So that article, that was a very general article, does not represent the entire department, and in fact, it's the opposite for your officers in West Valley and Topanga area. And I'm looking over here to my right, and I forgot to introduce him, but over there by the door is Commander George Rodriguez. George, wave your hand there. He is my partner, and he is second command here in the Valley, and he can also be of assistance to you should you need anything. These are challenging times in law enforcement. I just made some compliments, and we went through the generous comments of everybody's work. But make no mistake about it, law enforcement in 2017 is very, very difficult. We have a lot of things facing police officers that have not occurred over the years. We're in the midst of criminal justice reform throughout the state over the last several years with AB 109, Prop 36, Prop 47, Prop 57. There's a number of things that are occurring that are now the law of the land that make the peace officer's job much more difficult. We have a number of social issues facing society, like homelessness, mental illness, things that are not law enforcement problems in general, that are societal problems. And the things that we ask of our police officers to police these issues are difficult. We are in the midst of a national discussion across America about force in policing. And we're in a national discussion about race in policing. Police officers today are in the limelight like never before. And again, I'm a second-generation police officer, and I can speak firsthand. Your officers are wearing cameras on their chest. They have cameras in their car. They're under media scrutiny. They're under public scrutiny. And not that they shouldn't be, but they are to a level that's never occurred before. So that makes the job of a police officer very difficult. So as we go about the challenges in front of us and the help that we need, I ask that everybody keep that in mind, that we are facing very, very challenging issues in policing America today. I also want to talk, and the councilman talked about it, and I want to put a little bit, as Captain Vernon said this morning, put a little bit in context relative to crime. And the councilman warned me that I might get something thrown at me here. But in 2002, in the San Fernando Valley, we had 58,000 crimes. In 2014, after a 12-year reduction in crime, we went down to 32,000. So in the San Fernando Valley, at 1.5 million people, 58,000 crimes, down to 32,000. The low was in 2014. And yes, we have started to inch back up, and we're sitting now, last year we ended at around 39,000, which is too many crimes. I'm not going to deny that. But we are not at a level that we were at before, and I hear people say that sometimes. Crime is at a level it's never been at before. And I wanted to put that into just a little bit of context for the group and for all of us as we struggle with some of these challenges. The challenge is that the police and the community, brought crime down over those 12 years. And as much as we would like a crime-free society, we are likely not going to have one. That might be our goal, our vision, but we are likely not going to have a crime-free society. So the question is, how far can we bring crime down? My belief and my position and my charge to you all is your police officers in your police department are not going to solve the crime problem alone. We are not going to use handcuffs and jail cells to get rid of crime. That is a tool we will use, but it's not the only tool. My challenge that after seeing such a decline for so many years is the next generation, the next mobilization is going to be this room right here. And I honestly believe that the community can do a great deal to help your police department help your communities. And that's my challenge to you. And we'll go over a lot of stats and a lot of information here. But what I'm suggesting is that all of us need to be closer tied to our communities. And we need to assist the police department as much as you can. And some of you may have saw me. I was walking around the room here this evening, and I met a lady and chatted for just a couple seconds. And she told me, in short, I don't know any of my neighbors. They all have gates, and I never see them. And I told her very candidly that that's part of the problem. And I encourage you to know your neighbors, to know who belongs in your neighborhood, to know your senior lead officer, to go to neighborhood watch meetings, and those sorts of things. We have one community, I believe, I don't want to get in trouble, I believe it's Tarzana South, perhaps. that has, I think, 1,600 or 1,700 Facebook people in a group, and they know their neighbors, and crime is going down in that area, and we're arresting bad guys in that area, and that's an example. Another example is volunteering. You can go help volunteer for Captain Ryan at Topanga. Bob Bosch is in the room. Bob Bosch has been a volunteer at the front desk of Topanga since 2009. And he works the front desk. And every hour, Bob, stand up. Stand up, Bob. This may sound corny, but every minute that he's at that Topanga desk, answering a phone or talking to a citizen, that's a minute that a police officer can be doing something else, either out in the field patrolling or a detective investigating a crime or contacting a victim or a witness. So that's the challenge, and maybe me being the new guy coming to a very welcoming community like this, like you are, for me to challenge you like that's probably not a good start. Again, the councilman kind of warned me. He said, be careful, but I think I told you at the beginning, I'm very passionate about this place. I'm very passionate about the West San Fernando Valley. And I think that the suggestions and the challenges I made are right on point, and I think they can help make everything better in the San Fernando Valley, certainly in Council District 3 in the West San Fernando Valley. So with that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Captain Maureen Ryan, who runs Topanga Station, to make some remarks relative specific to Topanga.
Okay, got to be smarter than the mic. Is it working? Yeah. Got it. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day to care enough about your community to come here tonight. I know, and my partner, and everybody that works Topanga, and I'll speak for West Valley, we know how lucky we are to have the community support that we have. We have a room packed of people that care enough about their community, about their neighbors, and about us, I want to believe, to come here to express concerns, to talk to us, to give us support, to ask us questions, so that we can make the community as safe as we possibly can for those of you that live and work here. 2016 for Topanga Division obviously was challenging. We ended the year with crime up overall in our Part 1 crime, and specifically some of the things that drove our numbers were our burglaries. With residential, we had 745, and commercial, we had 304. And I tell you, when I see numbers like that, my stomach hurts, because it's not a number. That number represents a human being in a family who were victimized. And we don't take those numbers lightly. We investigate everyone and every lead is followed. All of those things matter to us. Significantly last year, we saw a rise in our burglaries south of Ventura Boulevard with a number of 230. And that was an increase from 150 in 2015. So we work hand in hand with our partners. We were born of West Valley, so we're very close in how we address our crimes. We're constantly talking. We have daily crime briefings. We have a weekly crime briefing at the Bureau. So we're constantly looking at our numbers in a 24-hour cycle. And we knew that some of those things were cropping up. And my boss, Chief Sherman, sorry, we work together when he's captain, so I apologize. We have societal issues that have changed the landscape a little bit for us. So we are challenged with those types of crimes. We look, some of volunteer program, and we have a volunteer that calls back every burglary victim to talk to them, to get information from them, to, you know, maybe their neighbor came and said, I have video. So that, and then mailing out prevention tips and hardening the target tips. So those are some of the things that we looked at last year and implemented. We had a bike detail, but this year we felt because of this rise in burglary crime specifically, we implemented a plainclothes undercover property crimes detail so that they can do surveillances and things like that for us, as well as follow up on leads that are developed from the victims of crime and through our detectives. So we shifted our deployment a little bit to specifically target our property crimes, which includes the residential burglaries and the commercial burglaries. This year, so far, we have seen our crime trends are trending down, and last year we averaged the one crime. We would love to have a society free of crime, but we averaged 130 crimes per week last year in 2016, and we are trending down. In the last 4 weeks, we have had crimes under 100, which is significantly trending in the right direction for us.
Are you saying those are burglaries, ma'am?
No, I'm saying all crime. All crime.
We're seeing an increase, I'm sorry.
All crime.
I'm sorry, we're seeing an increase in our neighborhood and our community.
Okay. Right now, I can address all that when we get to the questions, but right now I'm trying to give you just kind of an overview.
We're running out of time.
We can stay till 8:30, 9 o'clock. We'll try to stay to ask questions, but we have these folks giving you good information, and we have your questions, so we're going to go through the questions as well.
So we also have our auto crime was something specifically that drove our numbers last year with stolen vehicles and burglary and theft from motor vehicle. And this year we are seeing a trend down in those crimes significantly. Like I said, if you're the victim that lost their car, it's less impactful hearing it from someone saying that our crime is trending down. But it is trending down. We did have 9 homicides last year for our violent crime, which is significant. And but we had 3 multiples where 3 were gang related. In each of them, we had 2 incidents where 2 people were killed. Both of those were gang related. Both of them were domestic violence related. We had another gang related homicide, which was a narcotics deal where neither the suspects or the victims were from our area. We also had other homicides that occurred in our area. However, those are the gang-related homicides, and the others were, one was somewhat familial over in West Hills. We also had the only one that remains unsolved was a gentleman who was killed in the front of his property at his home, and the other one was occurred between friends. So that kind of gives you an idea of our homicide picture, which was significantly up last year over the year prior. And this year to date, we have had 1.
Okay, what I'd like to do now is, that was Topanga Division, that was everything west of Corbin. What I'd like to do now is have Captain Natalie Cortez discuss West Valley Division, which is roughly Corbin to the 405 freeway.
Good evening. Can you hear me back in the back? Is it on? Yes. Okay. Okay. Let's see if this mic's working better. No? Okay, I'm going to use this one better. There we go. Okay. I'm your West Valley Patrol Captain, and as Chief Sherman alluded to earlier, We have a new commanding officer at the West Valley area, Captain Beverly Lewis. We made these remarks together back and forth through the phone. She had that medical emergency. Hopefully she'll be back with us in a couple days, but she is doing better. I'd just like to give you a brief overview of where we stand relative to crime in the West Valley area. But first, let me provide you some brief stats of our division. For those who don't know, West Valley Station is located at Reseda and Van Owen. It serves 33.6 square miles. Our boundaries, as the chief indicated, are the 405 to Corbin, Mulholland to Roscoe. We have an approximate population of 194,000. West Valley currently has 244 sworn and civilian personnel assigned. Council District 3 covers the southwest portion of our division. So on to crime. Violent crime, and when I talk about violent crime, I'm referring to rape, robbery, murder, and ag assault. We are currently down 0.5% year-to-date versus 2016, and we plan on keeping that momentum going. Of note, our biggest decrease is in robberies. We are down 6%. Property crime is up right now, 5.9%, with the largest increase in grand theft auto. Another crime of interest is burglaries, which we are currently down 4.5%. And just to take a moment, and we spoke a little bit about this, to indulge me, I'm a very proud captain, and I want to just give you an example of how hard your officers work for you. Currently, in our area, for Part 1 crimes, which was the violent crimes and the property crimes I just described, we are up 15.3%. Your officers care, and they're crime fighters. Captain Lewis and myself, we both have a lot of energy, and we're looking forward to, going out and having a good 2017. And we've set a couple goals that I'd like to share with you. Our number one goal, and we alluded to it earlier, was the increase of social media. We'd like to increase that presence. Currently, we have about 2,000 plus community members participating in various neighborhood Facebook groups. In fact, one group, as we said, has over 1,600 members. Our goal is to continue and expand upon the real-time information sharing. We're going to increase our watch commander, and I have one here tonight who sits in and will be monitoring that info during their watch alongside our officers to get out there right away and get those clues. We also use that to provide crime tips, do public service announcements, and we call it the Captain's Corner, so you'll often hear from myself or Captain Lewis. I want to teach you how to harden that target. Our other goal is creating a citizen patrol. This is a group of highly trained individuals who go out and, under the supervision of a sworn officer, patrol the streets of West Valley. We look forward to some volunteers tonight to get this program off of the ground. The third thing we really want to focus on and bring increase in awareness to is our clergy council. We are looking for folks who have involvement in houses of worship to work alongside of us to build that community bond and work on safer neighborhoods. Again, we're looking for volunteers. We could always use an extra set of hands, eyes to help us along. So in closing, and to kind of drive home my ask, I just want to share a quote from you from Mark Twain. 20 years from now, you will be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than the ones you did do. So throw off the bow lines, sail from the safe harbor, cash the trade winds in your sails, explore, dream, and discover. I say that to you to stop and think. And if you've ever had that thought about volunteering or getting involved with your local police, we could really use you. And again, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to protect and to serve such a supportive community.
And now I introduced him a little bit earlier, but I'm going to ask Captain Andy Nyman, who's at the far right end, to my right at the table here, who oversees traffic, to make a few remarks about the traffic status in the valley.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'll just make this brief because I think some of the questions that I've already sort of previewed of what your interests are related to the traffic collisions that occur that impact your families, the driving that impacts your neighborhoods, and your kids going to school, and the people going to work. Just to give you a perspective, in the West Valley Division, so far year to date, we've had a total of 568 traffic collisions. And then in Topanga, they're right about the same, 563. The real critical numbers are the fatalities. We've seen a dramatic increase in the number of fatal accidents this year. And really, the primary cause of the majority of those accidents are related to two issues: speed and pedestrians actually not yielding to traffic, to vehicles. There's a common misperception out there in the public that a pedestrian always has the right of way. How many of you have heard that? All of us. I mean, we all do that. But they don't. So a pedestrian has the right of way when they are either in a marked crosswalk or an unmarked crosswalk, meaning if you have a street that has corners and the individual is walking directly 90 degrees from corner to corner, they're in what we call an unmarked crosswalk. Now, even though they're entering either a marked or unmarked crosswalk, a lot of times pedestrians either don't pay attention, they're texting, they're on the phone, or they just assume that they have the right of way, and they step off the curb into the street when it's not safe to do so. Meaning, you're driving down the street, you're about to negotiate a turn or proceed through the intersection, and they should be able to recognize that that vehicle is too close to enter the street as a pedestrian. When they do that, and we're able to determine that based on witnesses or information that we obtain, the pedestrian is actually at fault, and it's a tragic consequence. So one of the things that we're doing in our Valley Traffic Division, which covers the entire San Fernando Valley, one of the things we're doing is education. That's one of our big primary goals, both with youngsters, teenagers, as well as adults, and a lot of our elder communities, because we're seeing a lot more of our elder community age, and I shouldn't say elder because I'm in that community, but people who are aged 58 years and above who are becoming more and more victimized as pedestrians, and tragically many of them are at fault. So we need to spread the word, and hopefully many of you will engage in spreading that word as we come out to your communities, to your neighborhood groups, to your schools, etc. But with that, I kind of set the tone, and I know there's some questions that we want to get to, so I'll hold further remarks for now. Thank you.
So now I know you're eager to move to questions. I wanted to make a couple of acknowledgments in the back of the room because we have some folks that are here. We have the mayor's office, Kevin Taylor from the mayor's office. We've got Congressman Sherman's office is here represented, so if you have any federal issues, you'll bring it to them. We have a couple of neighborhood councils. We have the Woodland Hills and the Canoga Park neighborhood councils are here. When we talk about engaging with the community, that's a great way to engage on the local level. We have great neighborhood councils in my area. And I see Ace, and I want to mention we have Ann Tremblay, who's here, who's the director of GRID, which is the Gang Reduction Office in the mayor's office, is here, and as well as ACE, which is the Alliance for Community Empowerment, that is here. They're one of the basically the subcontractors dealing with gang activities, and they have a booth set up as well. So afterwards, make sure you talk to all of them about what they do, and they'll be able to give you some good information. And I said there's some great people just around the room. When we're done, we'll be sticking around to have conversations. So let's get to the questions. We've had so far over 50 questions were submitted to us. I'd say last call, if you have questions, make sure you put them on a card, give them to my staff. They're wearing blue shirts mostly, and they're going to get them to me during it. We've tried to group the questions because we don't have time for 50, but a lot of them are on the same topic, so I'll try to read multiple questions at once on a topic and have the panel, the appropriate person from the panel answer them. So let's start with the first question we have here is on property crime. And someone writes, regarding property crime, what is LAPD doing to combat the knock-knock burglaries in the West Valley, and what can residents do to help better protect their property against this type of burglary?
We happen to have the knock-knock burglar expert here, Lieutenant Todd Hinkle.
Let me first explain what knock-knock burglars are. They're a group of criminal street gang members, primarily from South Central Los Angeles. They group together, they cross gang territories, they cross gang affiliations, they get together and they go to affluent neighborhoods, one being up in the valley here, but they also go to Orange County, Ventura County, Santa Clarita area. So they do travel. This is just one area that they choose. They come to those areas because they're looking for money, they're looking for weapons, and they're looking for jewelry. They can get rid of those items very quickly, usually the same day. So they come up to this area and look for those certain indicators. One of them might be that indicate that there's wealth that might be stored in that location. And then they'll go to the front door. We call them knock-knocks because they'll knock on the door. And one person will knock on the door if no one answers. And 2 or 3 will join that one person. And they'll go to the rear side or rear of the location. They'll break into it. They'll stay there about 5 minutes, get the items they're looking for, and they'll leave. So this problem came up in 2016. It's been around since about 2001. We saw an increase in 2016. So in the area, I'll give you an example, in the area between south of the 101 freeway, between Corbin and the 405 freeway, we looked at that. There was about 325 burglaries in 2016. Out of those, we examined every one of those reports. We believe about 250 were caused by or committed by people that were affiliated with knock-knock associations or gang members. So with that, we brought the resources. I got the narcotics unit, put them together. Other divisions from North Hollywood, Van Nuys, Devonshire, and Topanga came together and provided me with resources. And we started working with the sheriff's group. Those resources started working clues, started putting patrol units down those areas. And so since that was the first 7 weeks that we saw the same indicators for 2017. And then going on to the last 7 weeks in West Valley in that area, I'm seeing 0 to 1. And I was seeing about 5 a week prior to that. So we've had an impact on it. We made plenty of arrests. What they do is they speak to each other through social media and different means, and they tell each other that this area is hot and they need to stay out of it. So we were successful in that. We continue to apply that pressure. I was able to get the LA County Impact to form a team, or to look at it. They've approved and they formed a team that will also help us with that. So LA Impact is an LA County agency that's formed of all the agencies around LA County, and they already set up, and they have federal assets along with county assets and city assets that will come out and help us with that also. So it's organized crime. It's difficult to deal with. It's not only affecting your communities, it's affecting a lot of communities. But we're definitely telling them, if you come here, we're putting the resources and the time in to ensure that you're going to go to jail. We made some significant arrests.
Todd, can you speak? The other part of the question was, what can somebody do to help prevent that? So some of the preventive measures?
Yeah, it's one of the best preventive measures is cameras around yours, any type of doorbell that has video and audio, lighting around your location, neighbors watching out for each other. That's great. An alarm system where the alarm is up in the attic so they can't disable the alarm. But one of the best things I've seen is actually the social websites, especially next door, where the neighbors are posting these videos, because sometimes they don't break into the house. They get scared by something, they leave. Neighbor, somebody's actually at home, and they get scared away. And that video gets posted onto one of these websites, and then other neighbors become hypervigilant and pay attention. So you're actually one of our best resources. If you see suspicious activity in your neighborhood, you need to call us. That's our job to come in and check that out.
Could I offer a couple of other things? I'm Captain Vernon from Topanga. We've come up with a number of ways by which we think that these suspects will target homes. So by providing you, educating you on those ways, because you're not criminals and you don't think that way, we can hopefully immunize you against those crimes. So here are some of the ways. Recently, we discovered in Topanga area that our burglaries have gone up into the wee hours of the night, say after midnight to say 3 o'clock in the morning. That's unusual. What hasn't happened is they haven't been hot prowls. They're going into homes that they know are empty. How do you think they know that they're empty? The lights are off, the cars are gone, things like that. That means they're watching in neighborhoods. So one of the things that we would really like you to do is go out and buy a simple, and I bought one at Home Depot. It was a 2-pack of timers that you put into your plug, and then you plug the lamp into that timer. And you can set that timer to go on 2 or 3 times in an evening. And it makes it look like someone is home. You can plug a radio into it, which would turn on the radio or turn it off. The idea there is that after dusk, these guys are out cruising around thinking, oh, people go out, especially now in the spring and summertime, people go out to dinner. They stay out on a Friday night till 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. maybe 3. So we've got time. Okay? How many of you go out and post on Facebook, oh, I'm over at the Blue Note. I'm at the Blue Note. Okay? You're a target. You're a target if you're telling the crooks where you are. Okay? Don't do that. Next thing is the knock-knock burglars, as Todd mentioned. They will knock on your door. Nobody answers. So then they go around the back and they kick in typically your slider. And they just kick it in. That tempered glass shatters. That's what it's made to do. We're recommending that people, when you get new, I'm not saying go out and change your sliders out now, but if you get a slider, get one with laminated glass. It doesn't shatter, it still protects you, but the crook can't always get in. Pets are good ways of keeping crooks out of your house. The doorbell cameras are outstanding. Because they make it look like you're home. When they ring that doorbell, it comes on, you say, hello, what do you want? They go, oh, we got the wrong place, or oh, we're selling magazines. Not interested, go away. Okay? We have also stopped crooks. Our undercover team in Topanga stopped a guy who was walking up and down empty driveways where cars were not parked during the day. And they watched him, the undercover guys watched him for a while, but he made them. So we got on his phone, he called some buddies, they came around in a white van and picked him up. Inside that van when we stopped it were 5 more guys like him. And they were all supposedly selling magazines. What the interesting thing was, all 5 of them, except for the driver, who was the 6th, were from out of state. Why is that important? No criminal history in California. And so this is how much they are thinking it out, okay? So those things are going on. They will set up lookouts. That's why writing down a license plate in your neighborhood of cars that don't seem to belong there, that drive up, stop, look, and then drive away, or maybe show like they're stranded with a hood up, write down a license plate. Maybe nothing happened, but if your neighbor gets burglarized, that's a tip for us. Because the lookouts will put the hood up, sit there, often women in the cars, like they're stranded, while the guys go in and burglarize the car. One last thing on the what was I going to say? There was one other thing. The license plates. Sharing this information. How many people here had a burglary? Okay. If you were burglarized in Topanga, as somebody broke into your house, if you're from Topanga, we have a volunteer that calls you, and they follow up to say, what more can you tell us about, did you find any extra things left behind, things like that, after the detectives are gone. Something else that we do, especially if you're south of Ventura Boulevard, we send officers out, or detectives, the senior leads out, and we have them walk the entire block of the house that was burglarized. Why? Because in those big properties, you don't know each other. And you don't know when your neighbor has been burglarized. But if you do know, if you hear, what does that make you do? It's like when we have an earthquake and you all collect water. Right? Well, when you find out your neighbor's been burglarized, you go buy a dog, you get a doorbell, you do all kinds of things. That's good. We want to harden that target. But we also might walk up and knock on the door of the house that burglarized you. Maybe the teenager that lives there did it. So they'll hear that we're around, and maybe that'll scare them. Or we might get a tip from you that says, well, if anybody's doing a burglary in our neighborhood, it'll be the house down over there, because it's happened before. So we don't know. We do that all to harden the target, to get more information from you. Last thing, on the lady that says the burglaries aren't down, you're somewhat right. They don't feel like they're down in Topanga right now, because we are only 5 less than we had for the same time last year. So it's nearly even. But I will tell you, for this time last year, the burglaries south of Ventura Boulevard were 4 a week. This year, right now, 2 a week. So they've gone down in half. I'm not saying all those are knock-knock, okay? But they've gone in half. We've seen them decline. And part of that are the strategies by putting extra people out there. We've had our narcotics units, our vice units, other kinds of people working plainclothes that would be otherwise doing other things, going down into those areas to catch these crooks. And we want to catch them. And we've caught a lot of them recently.
So a couple more preventive things, because the question was preventive things. Age-old things. Motion lights outside your house. Look at your environment. What do the bushes look like? Can people hide easily in the front of your house? Are you a member of Neighborhood Watch? None of those things are new. Those things have been around for decades. You should join a Neighborhood Watch. You should take one of these senior leads and walk around your neighborhood and look at what the houses look like. So, very good question about what things can we do to prevent it.
Thank you. We have a lot of questions, so what I'm going to try to do, in fact, the biggest block of questions is on homelessness. So I'm going to read a bunch of the questions and we can try to answer them. We did a whole town hall meeting on homelessness 6 months ago, and with several hundred people came up, and the whole topic was homeless. We had all the homeless experts. So I don't want to turn this meeting into that meeting, but I want to make sure that we get these questions asked and we do some quick responses from the police on these issues. But we spend our whole time on that, we won't get to any of these other questions. So I want to try to move as quickly as possible and remind everyone, this is a conversation, and I want to have it continue. They want to have it continue. So today is not the end of this. This is part of an ongoing dialogue. But some of the questions on homelessness that have been asked. What is the short and long-term solution to homeless encampments on the side streets and under freeways? What happened with the homeless outreach? Why are the police required to manage the homeless when there are not enough police patrolling the area? What can be done about the crews of beggars that appear at our shopping centers exploiting children to panhandle? What is being done to address homeless encampments? Please stop allowing people to use neighborhoods as a place to squat, surrounded by, can't quite read this. So we're now the place that allows dwellers to park. What are you doing to assist the mentally ill? Drug addiction encampments at Topanga and Clarendon Street is back. What are you doing about that? Please address the epidemic about the mentally ill and transients who are blocking sidewalks during the day. Can you also tell us about transient homeless who are now residing on the campus of our church and have cost more than thousands in repair? The river walk in Reseda. An article in the LA Times about LAPD talks about, well, that's not directly about homeless, so we'll talk about that later. Why we have to do 3 interventions: a posting to remove homeless encampments when transient, quote, homeless people are on public streets or in parking lots. So questions about the process. Homeless shelters. There are none for children that are attending schools. What can be done with the police or other agencies about the homeless encampments and other encampments? Do the laws in place allow you to do your job? And here's a big one, just says, get rid of homeless. What can be done? Ventura, the trash, townhouse complex. And then there's a number of questions related to that about vehicular living, why do we have RVs overnight, camping. I understand the city council voted to rezone Ventura Boulevard. The RVs parked in residential areas includes increase of burglary. I'll start with the RV question, and then I read a lot of questions. I'm happy to reread some, and then I'll throw it to you guys for a bunch of these questions. The question about RV is an interesting one. We had a law in the city that prevented sleeping in your vehicle, and that was the law of the city. The court, in a court case, Ninth Circuit basically ruled that law unconstitutional. It was vague, and we were not allowed to enforce it as a city. And so we had to go back with the city attorney and figure out a way to change that law. And one of the things that the court was saying is, unless you have reasonable places for these folks to go, you cannot prevent them from living in their car. Now, the biggest concern, listen, we can yell things back and forth, but we tried to organize this so we can answer all your questions. I know there's a lot of frustration out there. I feel it from you, but I'd like to get as much done as we can, and so this will be more productive if you let us go through the process. So we, as a city, we tried to figure out how do we create a law that will pass constitutional muster, And the biggest problem we had was people parking in residential areas. That was the biggest complaint that we got. We were able to get a law approved that is deemed, that hasn't been challenged yet in the court, that basically said you can ban people from living in their vehicles in residential areas. So that is what the city council voted on. There's a misunderstanding out there. People think that the city voted to allow parking on Ventura and in other areas. And that's not what was passed. After the court struck down the city law, the law was that you could live anywhere in this city. So we were able to limit that so that you can no longer live in a vehicle in a residential area. And that law is now on the books. And what's also on the books is that even if you're living in your vehicle, you have to obey all of the law, all of the street signs. So if you're going to go on Ventura Boulevard and it's 2-hour parking, you still only get 2-hour parking. If it's no overnight parking, you can't park overnight. So that's how the law was changed. It was made actually tougher for folks who were living in their vehicles. My hope is that we can do something like what they did in Santa Barbara, in parts of Santa Barbara with a safe parking program where you can create certain areas, and some faith institutions and churches and synagogues have been open to this idea where you can create places where people can park safely, both because it's more humane, and also when you have that, then they will be able to pass a law legally that prevents people from parking on the rest of the streets. So right now there is a map out there that shows you where you can and can't park, but it's not an authorization to park on streets. Basically it's an exclusion saying you can't park on residential streets. So that's the issue with the RV parking. There were a lot of other homeless issues, and I'm going to throw them open to the panel, and then we'll move on to other questions because we have so many different topics here.
Yes, and Councilman, you rambled off a whole bunch of questions there, and many of those were not law enforcement questions. They were not issues about the police department. I can give a few global remarks about the overarching issue. And the first is the concept that being a homeless person and being without a home in and of itself is not a criminal act. And that is a city philosophy that we have in that aspect. We've also had some challenges in the recent past relative to federal court injunctions about what we can and can't do with homeless property on public property, on sidewalks and things like that. Those have been a challenge for Los Angeles. The City Council has enacted and changed, as the Councilman just referenced, the dwelling in a vehicle, and also 5611, which is the having property on the sidewalk or public property. That's helping us, giving us a tool to work the problem. We cannot, the Los Angeles Police Department, cannot solve the homeless problem in Los Angeles. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that we can go and arrest away, put handcuffs on a homeless person, and move and get the problem cleared up. There has to be other solutions. One of the things that we're doing is within the city is we have put together in each of the bureaus, and we have one, homeless outreach and prevention efforts, HOPE teams that are working there. Your police officers, led by a sergeant, going out and addressing some of the chronic problems, chronic locations. I'm not going to throw him in front of the mic due to time constraints, but I'm going to ask him to raise his hand. Sergeant Mike Padilla is against the wall over there. Higher, Mike, raise your hand higher. His full-time job is to work on addressing some of the chronic homeless problems in the San Fernando Valley. He's here tonight. If you have a specific problem in your community or your neighborhood that you need to address, Mike would be an exceptional person to talk to and go talk to him about your specific problem. Furthermore, again, one of the age-old strategies is you have your senior lead office. You have your senior lead officers. You should be working closely with them in trying to address the problem. There were a number of other questions, and I don't know if there was one that had more significance than the other, or if anybody wanted to add anything.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm sorry. You've been interrupting a few times. I appreciate it, but all these people have written down questions, and it's going to slow us down if we have yelling back and forth.
Oh, I already know that. Where's my hand?
So are there anyone else that want to talk about particular issues on homeless on any of the questions that I raised? Captain Byrne.
Just one consideration, keep again in perspective, that I have a I don't know if anybody else that's sitting up here that's worked in Central. Chief Sherman did as a bureau commander down there. I worked downtown Central in Skid Row for a number of years. And you want to talk about homelessness out there. But I also know that among that, it's hard today to truly separate the fact of homelessness and the mentally ill. And that is a huge aspect. And when it sounds very watered down when you talk about homeless. Over the holidays, we had a homeless family that we discovered near our police station who were broken down in a car. They're not homeless anymore because we found them a place to live because they were willing to go live and to get them home. So we're able to do that. And Sergeant Padilla and other officers across this city have the ability to do that, and officers out of their own pockets can do that every day for people who are willing to. But you have to understand, the ones that want to live in their RVs, the ones that want to live at the beach, the ones that want to live in the street and in the parks and under the underpasses, they want to live there because they don't want to follow rules. And when they don't want to go into the shelters because there are rules in the shelters. So that's the problem for the policing then, that we have to deal with that, and we have to balance it because there have been the lawsuits and the legal decisions to do that. So this is a societal matter that kind of falls in our laps to deal with, but we're working on it very diligently every single day. And many of these people are drug addicted, and we've seen those kinds of rules change as far as the drugs going, legalizing drugs and so on. So all of that is a potential. So this balance or imbalance that's going on in our society today with some of these decisions being made.
And the other thing I would like to add is this issue of homelessness that I said in my initial remarks is not a crime to be homeless. We are not working on it alone. Your city family and your county family is working on it. Sergeant Padilla works very, very closely with LASA, which is the Los Angeles Homeless Services Agency. We did work with LA Sanitation to clean up your streets, street maintenance, and street workers. They work as a unit, as a team, to address the problems that come up and make an effort to try to fix them. They look for services that Captain Vernon recommended to try to help the homeless, as well as trying to find ways to get rid of the property within the law, within the limits of the law that we have. And those are the efforts that we're undertaking. And again, I know somebody has already talked to them, but for your specific product problem in front of your home or your business, please do reach out to Sergeant Padilla this evening.
Sergeant Padilla, also reach out to my office. We're working with folks all the time on cleanups, trying to get encampments cleaned up, get Hope officers out to folks and get cleanups, particularly under some of the underpasses. Someone is asking about loitering laws. We're trying to use those. We're going to be putting up signs underneath the underpasses saying no loitering. That will give the police a little bit will give them another tool so they don't have to go through the same process, the three-step process in terms of being able to work with the folks who are living under that. So that's another tool that can be used. But loitering is you can't just say someone's on the street is loitering. You're allowed to loiter unless there's a no loitering sign in different areas. So that does beg the question for certain areas.
But there is a law in the books that says that they cannot walk sidewalks during the day hours. I just want this question answered very simple.
I understand. You want to get a question?
I ask every time, and it always gets like
All right,
to the side.
there is an idea.
During the day hours,
Please don't make a speech. Please. We're going to this is going to become chaos if everybody just starts yelling out what she's asking about, and I'll repeat it. But we got to go to the questions that people have actually written down, then we'll get to it. We're trying to get to all the questions. But are you allowed to block the sidewalk? No. You're balancing the rules with ADA, the Americans with Disability Act. So when someo's on the sidewalk, if they're blocking the sidewalk, the police are able to to clear that. You can ask, does anyone here want to comment on the issue of blocking sidewalks?
And yes, it is against the law to block the sidewalk. And if you have somebody that's blocking an entire sidewalk, then it does become a police matter. In many instances, it's not blocking the entire sidewalk.
Another question here that's probably, in a way, is related. Please. The folks here want to hear their questions answered as well. We have a dialogue with one or two people. It's not. I'll keep. Every time I repeat it, it wastes the time that we have. It's already 8:18. I'd like us to go. You're supposed to go to 8:30. I'd like to try to get to 9. But folks have places to be. I'm sorry, not every question, every dialogue is going to happen, but we'll continue those conversations as we move forward. Someone asked about, which is kind of related to all this, about federal cuts and will they impact policing and homelessness. And I'll answer that to some extent. I am very worried about the potential cuts on the federal level to our efforts. The president has proposed eliminating the CDBG program, which is a program that helps fund our homeless services, which helps fund a variety of social services to the most vulnerable. He's talked about eliminating a lot of local funds. We get a lot of federal funds. We get more than $100 million in public safety, about $180 million in a variety of public safety dollars. So we just voted to tax ourselves with Measure H and Measure Triple H, which is great and will be helping tremendously with our homeless problem. Measure H is $1.2 billion that will go to brick and mortar housing. Measure HHH will go, or I've reversed it, will go to county services. But at the same time, we're going to be running to keep in place if these cuts actually happen out of the White House, because at the same time we're getting some new funds, we're going to have a lot of other funds ripped out from under us. So that is something that we are concerned about. I'm certainly concerned about, and it's something that we're going to have to deal with as we move forward. Next questions are about gang activity. It says, what is being done about gang-affiliated graffiti? Where are these criminals coming from? Gangs, homeless? Is the increase in burglaries related to organized crime? And I'll let the panel answer that. I had these very same questions. I put a motion before the City Council about 4 months ago specifically to get those answers in the West Valley, because I was very concerned that a lot of times people assume that we don't have gang activity in the West Valley. And they were able to put a report out which showed we actually have 16 different gangs in the West Valley. And it documented that and talked about gang-related crimes. And I think is important both because that kind of information goes through the police commission and the other folks who help with deployment decisions. It will also help me in the city budget process. But gangs are a real issue. They're not as bad as in some parts of the city, but also some parts of the city, those gangs are visiting us in our part of the city. So I'll turn the gang question over to the panel.
Hello. Just to put it a little bit in perspective for the West Valley area, in the city of Los Angeles, we have about 45,000 gang members and about 450 gangs. In the West Valley area, we have about 3 gangs and less than 100 gang members. So if you look at it, it's relatively low. However, as Lieutenant Henkel indicated, the gangs from the south of Los Angeles come into our area and commit crime. That's alarming. And again, we've talked about the measures and strategies we're working on. As to graffiti, we take that very serious. It's not a small matter. It's a quality of life. We're very active. We have gang experts that read the graffiti, know what's going on, and who we attribute it to. We recently had graffiti in our area where they were tagging actually ambulances. We put a quick stop to that. We found it was a couple wannabes trying to get into a gang, and we were able to clear several crimes related to that. So we work on it. No one likes to go through alleys. No one likes to see sides of buildings, and that is part of our gang enforcement details mission, is to make sure that we're getting rid of that graffiti and that gang crime. But I just want to put a little bit of perspective to tell you how low, the gang members are that we do have in our area. Maureen, did you want to comment on anything further?
Just to, again, keep the perspective, when we talk about gang members coming into this area for the burglaries, they are not involved in drive-by shootings. They are not involved in robbing people in the street. They are focused on these burglaries of these homes. It's a business for them. And that is much different than the territorial, traditional, street-level gang members that we talk about. That in the valley is relatively low compared to other parts of the city. We do have it in West Valley and Canoga Park area, and we do address that. We each have our own gang unit. We know who the players are, and we are after them all the time. That is primarily our focus on violent crime, is over those few number of people. As to the graffiti removal, you can call 311 for that, to get that done, and the senior leads all know a contractor that they can get a hold of, and we will come out and that contractor will get that graffiti out lickety-split. We don't like having that out there because we don't like giving them any kind of credibility or publicity at all. And so we'll get that painted out as quickly as we can, as long as we know about it.
We've also had some where business owners want to paint it out themselves, or private citizens want to paint it out themselves as quickly as possible. If that is the case, we would ask that you photograph it before it gets painted so that we have a record of it. So again, that would go with the vandalism report, and we can get that photograph and tagging information to our gang unit so that they can continue to work on that.
Okay, we'll move to the next one. There's a bunch of questions about drug use. Why are teenagers allowed to smoke marijuana in their cars? What are the immediate plans of actions to combat the recent explosions of drug users? What tests are there for driving under the influence? There's a couple other questions about teens and drugs. So let's just make that the topic. I'm going to try to move as quickly as we can through these.
So in terms of allowing teenagers to smoke illegal substances in their cars, when we know about it, we enforce it. In terms of driving under the influence of any substance that alters your ability to drive safely, obviously we know about the field sobriety test, the standardized field sobriety test. Because of the recent legislation that now has legalized marijuana, there is no specific test that officers are able to perform in the field like a breathalyzer. There are companies and agencies that are working on that. They have to get a standardization to determine how much of the chemical, the THC that's in marijuana, would cause a person or impair their ability to drive and operate a motor vehicle safely. So what we do in the meantime is that our officers are trained in the objective symptoms of somebody who's impaired, whether it's by alcohol or some other drug, and they use the standardized field sobriety test to determine whether or not they believe their ability to drive safely has been impaired. And they would make the arrest basically driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol based on their observations. So that is in place right now, and I'm sure in the very near future we will see additional tests. They're working on some saliva tests, they're working on some breathalyzers that can calibrate the amount of THC, but again, there has been no quantitative value placed on that yet in terms of what is legally under the influence. So.
Every division in the city has a narcotics enforcement unit, which are plainclothes officers and detectives whose primary, if not sole function, is to investigate complaints of narcotics activity as well as enforce the narcotics laws. So we have, if you have a particular problem, maybe somebody's in front of your location or a neighbor's home, and you see coming and going, cars coming and staying 5 minutes and leaving, people coming throughout all hours of the night, those types of activities, as you will know, doesn't fit a normal neighborhood, right? We go to work, we come home, we eat dinner, we do whatever we're going to do, and we go lights out. So all that kind of unusual activity at a residence might lead you to believe that there is narcotics activity occurring there. So if that's the case, you can call the division at whatever division you're in and make a report. And I mean, it has a report number, but it's a 319 for us. and you want to, you can report that, and then they would investigate it. You can also call Crime Stoppers, a we tip Crime Stoppers anonymously and get that information, because that would then filter through them and then back to the divisions. So those are some ways that if you're seeing something that's occurring in your neighborhood, to get that information to us.
There's one interesting change in society that I don't think anyone's confronted or even we're aware of. For many, many years, us as cops, we see a drunk lying down drunk in the street. We can arrest him, and we call it a short form drunk, take him to the jail. He sits in there for 4 hours, and he sobers up, and he's released. With the change in the narcotics laws, where they basically have almost decriminalized being under the influence of drugs, we don't have that same option. To arrest someone for being under the influence of drugs, we have to go through many, many, many legal steps to test them and back it up with expertise and all these kinds of things. So it's interesting that as now all this is changing, where people can smoke marijuana legally and all these other things are available, decriminalize some of the being under the influence of drugs, we don't have the ability to be able to take a person off the street who's lying there passed out in the same way we could for somebody who's drunk. And that's something that down the line we may have to look into, seeing if there's a legal way to be able to change that and address it.
Yeah, certainly, and that's a lot of that is federal and state laws that we're dealing with, where the city, we can only make the laws that are legal within the state and federal. I'm going to try to go to the topics that we have the most. We have about 20 questions, one form or another, about patrol and deployment. Give you a sample. One person writes, which is sort of overall, we've seen both a surge in population, a surge in crime. How can we be assured that if resources are added for patrol, those won't simply be resources taken from other necessary crime prevention patrol areas? Another person says, regarding patrol and deployment, why is there a lack of patrol in our district? Another says, is there a plan to hire more officers? Do we, and I think a number of these questions are related to this one, do we as West Valley residents get our fair share of patrol resources? And then what is Metro's role in putting officers on the street? Get the idea. A lot of people are concerned, as we always are in the Valley, in the West Valley, about are we getting our fair share, and do we have enough patrol officers in the street?
So, couple issues about deployment, and you rattled off a bunch of questions there. First off, there were some questions about, do we have enough police officers, and does the west side of the valley have their fair share of resources? Or is there any hiring underway? There is a general sense, and I know the councilman has heard it in city council, I know Chief Beck has said it to public safety, to the city council, that we don't believe we have enough police officers in Los Angeles. It's a 4 million person city. We have 2,000 or 10,000 police officers, and we could use some more. That's a given. Thank you. But the other given is we don't have any more, and certainly in the near future, we don't have an increase in hiring plan underway. There's a couple of reasons for that. One being budgetary, of course. The councilman already mentioned the challenges that we have and the amount of money that goes into the police budget already. But then secondarily, it's very difficult to hire police officers today. We have an attrition rate of retirements, and then we have hiring, and we are at 10,000. We are just, I think we're at 9987 or something. We're very, very close to 10,000. And we're barely keeping up with attrition, and we're hiring a lot. So those two challenges make it kind of difficult for us to say, and the chief has said this before, that we could probably use 2,500 more cops. We could probably be a police department of 12,500. But the reality is we don't have 12,500, and we probably can't get there in the near future. So we use the resources that we have, and I will argue with you that we use them very smartly, and we are doing policing in a smarter, better way than we did 15, 20, 30 years ago. As to the fair share in the west part of the San Fernando Valley, the deployment formula for Los Angeles is approved by the City Council, and it is a algorithm. It is a formula of about 25 different factors that says, based on all of these factors, a police station, Topanga or West Valley, needs X amount of police officers. That formula is the formula we use today, and it is set on the concept of a 7-minute response time, meaning we'll get to an emergency call in 7 minutes. Now that's too long. We'd like to be there in 30 seconds, but we can't. This is Los Angeles. It's set on a goal of a 7-minute response time, and it's set on a 30% available time, meaning officers have some available time to do extra things. Your officers that you're looking at here would tell you they don't have any extra time, but that's what it is set on. It's a formula. And I tell you that not to confuse you with numbers and data, but to tell you that we do not deploy people randomly. We do not, as much as the councilman may like it, he says, I want more people. We don't deploy more people just because Councilman Blumenfield says he wants more police officers. We deploy police officers based on that formula. The other, and to answer your question, these two police stations have their fair share of the police officers that they should have to meet that plan. Now, the other part of this is we are doing a lot of things that we haven't done in the past. 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have a human trafficking task force. We didn't have commercial crimes division. We didn't have electronic theft. We didn't have identity theft. We didn't have the multitude of units that we have today. Our HOPE team I just referenced to you earlier. We didn't have all those things. So we have those specialists. We have SMART teams. We have psychiatric caregivers that are going out with police officers to handle mental illness radio calls that we didn't have in the past. So we're doing a lot of those things citywide and out in the valley and out in the West San Fernando Valley to hopefully more strategically and smartly police the community. The other piece that we do is we very stringently hold the captains accountable to the officers that they have. Captain Ryan is running Topanga area. She does have some prerogative to put people, as she mentioned earlier, on bikes or in a property crimes detail or deploy them in a high crime area like south of the boulevard. She needs that autonomy and she needs that authority to do that. But I hold her accountable to making sure that she meets her patrol mandates and that she's putting police officers, the right number of police officers out on the street. So I hope I globally answered the deployment question. There was another question relative to Metropolitan Division, I think. If that was it was a very specific question, probably from a police officer. But we do have a enhanced and robust Metropolitan Division that is designed and created to be a fast response, ready response entity within the city to handle either an immediate critical incident that's happening right now, or to handle an emerging incident like a crime pattern or a crime trend that's going on that we want them to handle. And they are deployed all over the city, including your fair share in the San Fernando Valley. And we deploy them as we see fit around the valley based on those emerging trends that I referenced. So they are a very valuable tool. And again, I don't know what knowledge the person has of Metropolitan Division, but they are also our SWAT team, our mounted unit, our K-9 handlers, and as well as the other crime suppression efforts that are out there. So they are a very robust force, but they're very valuable and they're a critical part of our crime fighting efforts.
One quick little stat that might help put that in perspective for you as well. The chief mentioned that we have about 10,000 officers, and that's what we're allowed to have. Do you know how many police officers there are in the city of New York? 35,000. There are 35,000 police officers in the city of New York for 280 square miles and 8 million people. There are 10,000 police officers in the city of Los Angeles for 4 million people spread out over 465 square miles. Now, to put that in a way so you can weigh that between apples and apples, the city of New York has 42 police officers for every 10,000 people. The city of Los Angeles has 25 police officers for every 10,000 people. And we have always policed that way. That's why we are very mobile. We have always had to police that way. When I came on the job 30 years ago, we had about 7,000 police officers. So I've seen this grow quite a lot in my time. And we can always, rarely do people ever say they have enough. I've heard a few people say it, but usually those are the crooks.
We have a couple of questions about traffic enforcement. How can we get some traffic enforcement policing to the West Valley? It talks about an April 3rd article, the LA Times, a surge in traffic deaths mirrors complaints we've heard. There were a couple other questions about both traffic and specifically about radar, using radar.
So very quickly, traffic division, just like your area divisions, we have a program like a senior lead officer. We call them the community traffic safety officers. And I have little slips with their email addresses for anybody that's interested. You're welcome to come up to me. I'll wait for you up here in the front after the meeting. But those CSO officers basically are responsible for responding to your specific traffic complaints. So if you live in an area and you got people constantly speeding down your street to bypass Ventura Boulevard or the canyons, that's what they do. They will open up an investigation, a complaint investigation. They will utilize the resources both from our traffic division as well as the division where the complaint is to try to address that and mitigate it and eliminate it. Sometimes they go away, sometimes they don't exist, or they're not as bad as, it's always bad when it's right in front of your house and you have that knucklehead that drives, crazy, and you get the kids that are in the driveway. So we get it. We want to respond to that. We will respond to that. So please see me and I'll give you one of those slips. In terms of radar, over the last several years, we have we've lost a tool that was very valuable, especially out here in the West Valley where we have very wide streets that are very long and very straight. In fact, one of my motor officers said you basically stand at one end of Roscoe Boulevard and you can see the ocean at the other end. So those wide open streets allow people to drive very quickly. And originally I was going to ask everybody to stand up and then challenge you, if you've never sped, to sit down. So we all speed. We all do. It's an instinct. Cars drive better. You've got wide open roads here, and you sort of move with the traffic, or you move because the idiot is on your bumper trying to push you to go faster. We get it. So for the last number of years, we have lost a tool which is radar. Radar enforcement or laser enforcement with the new tool allows us to basically have an officer at a location utilize a radar gun and catch people who are speeding from a distance. Because, quite frankly, when you see the officer, smart people slow down. That's part of it, but that doesn't change the behavior. You slow down for that moment, maybe a few blocks, and then you're on the pedal again. So we didn't have the ability to do radar because in order to do radar under the law, a street has to be surveyed by engineers. And there's a lot of factors that go into that. But basically, they're looking at the street to determine, what are the factors that would allow us to use radar here. Is it a heavily, densely populated area? Is this a high volume intersection? What are the traffic collision data for this area? So for several years, those surveys went out of compliance. They have to be resurveyed every 7 years, and they can get an extension for 3 years. Bottom line is, we lost surveys in a lot of the streets out here, almost all of them. So that took away a tool. Those are slowly coming back online. We have about 50 streets that have been resurveyed now, but there are hundreds of locations in this valley and in the San Fernando Valley where we need those surveys. So they're coming online. Our folks are going to get back out there with radar and laser, so slow down, warning. And we do that. The other question that I read before was regarding parking enforcement. Now, that's not a major assignment for police department. The Department of Transportation typically handles that. But in traffic division, we go out and we handle some of our problem areas where people have been parked, unregistered vehicles for expired registration. We go out and we do a task force twice a month all over the city, and we impound typically on average 50 or 60 vehicles with unlicensed vehicles. So we do those a couple times a month, coming up April 12th. So if you have an old classic car that you haven't registered for a while and it's parked in front of your house, move it into your driveway on April 12th so you don't lose that nice vehicle.
The insider information as well. That's a good thing. And it's my understanding from the city council perspective, we fully funded now the the traffic surveys. So we're getting every single road surveyed so that you can have that tool back, because that is important. We're starting to lose people, so I want to try to go quickly and leave some time for people to have individual questions who want to have that dialogue to come up and do this. I'm going to attempt this topic here. We have a lot of questions on it. I'm not going to read some of the questions. It's obviously a very emotional issue, and it deals with undocumented people, sanctuary cities. We have some people who are clearly very concerned about sanctuary cities and use some choice language about SB 54 and some other issues, and we have a number of people who are sort of on the other side asking about the adverse impacts, about immigration raids and what that does to crime. But overall, the topic I'm going to throw out is one question here is, are we a sanctuary city, and what does that mean? And I'm going to start by answering, and then I'll open it up, which is, we've had the same policy since 1979, Special Order 40. And since then, and that policy was promoted by Daryl Gates, who was, everyone here knows the history, is not a big liberal. He was a very conservative guy, and he realized, and the city at that point realized, that if you arrest people, go out and actively arrest people for immigration issues, they're not going to be reporting crimes, they're not going to be victims, they're not going to be reported when they're victims, and the whole city will get less safe. So since 1979, the city made a policy that LAPD will not actively serve as immigration officers. They will not go out and do the federal job of immigration, and that will make our city safer. It's become a much hotter topic lately with the president. And the question is, are we not a sanctuary city? What does that actually mean? Different people have different definitions. But our policy is basically the same. The mayor did an executive order recently to reiterate that. We do cooperate with ICE when it comes to violent felons. And well, I'm going to open that up to the panel to talk about what we do and what we don't do.
Okay, so thank you. First, what I want to do is the councilman already addressed it primarily, but just make sure we all understand the philosophical concept of municipal law enforcement. We want everybody in the community to talk to us. You want everybody in the community to talk to us. If you become the victim of something, if your home is burglarized, and a witness sees somebody and can help us recover your property, you want that witness to come forward to us. This is more of a cop story, but I'm sure you've seen it. Has anybody ever seen it's usually a couple or a mother and a small child that comes up to a police officer and says, if you do that again, I'm going to have the police officer arrest you. Raise your hand if you've heard that. Okay. We hate that. I don't hate to strong. We don't like that. We don't ever want you to do that because we don't want kids to be scared of us. We don't want kids to fear a police officer. So please don't take a child up to a police officer and say, if you do X, then the police officer is going to arrest you or get you in trouble. I'm going to take that child analogy and move it to anybody else, including an undocumented alien. And we don't want people to fear coming to the police officers. That's the philosophical guiding principle that the Los Angeles Police Department uses, and it is the philosophical guiding principle of almost all, if not all, municipal law enforcement agencies in America. We do not inquire or initiate activity based on anybody's immigration status. We never have, certainly not since 1979, and there's no plans for the Los Angeles Police Department to change. The other component of this is relative to enforcing immigration laws. Most, and I mean the large percentage of immigration laws, are civil in nature. On April 15th, it's tax day. You won't see any of us coming to any of your houses if you don't file taxes on April 15th. Because that's a civil, federal issue for the United States, as is most, and as are most immigration laws. So we don't enforce that. We don't initiate activity, and we don't have any intention of starting that. We do, as the councilman indicated, we do work with all of our federal partners, Federal Bureau of Investigation, ATF, ICE included, on criminal conduct, on human trafficking, international human trafficking in our streets, drug cartels and immigration issues related to drug cartels and felonious criminals. We work on those task force. We work with them. But we don't work with them what we've all been reading and hearing about, brought to light of late in our society in the manner that I just described. And I can't, there's not a lot more to me to say other than that general philosophical concept of municipal law enforcement in America.
Okay. I want to get to the point where we can have you come up for questions. Well, I guess there's one other topic we had so many questions on. I'm going to just throw it out without reading all the questions, which is basically Prop 47, Prop 57, AB 109, and these issues. And I'll start with, one of the issues on Prop 47 has to do with, some certain crimes were, drug crimes in particular, became misdemeanors in terms of certain levels. And the trade-off, theoretically, that we were all sold back when it was supported by Newt Gingrich, Jay-Z, it was supported across the board, was that more money would go to drug diversion, and that would ultimately create less crime. We've obviously seen, we have folks who are repeat offenders that we're all concerned about. One of the things I've been doing is pushing the state and trying to find out how much of that money, of that savings, are we actually getting? Because 47 said that we'd get $100 million a year, the state would. Last year, the state basically put forward, they said the savings was about 42 million, and then they added about 20 million, but that's still less than the 100 million. So I put a motion into the council to lobby the state to try to get more of that money for that savings into the actual diversion programs, because if we're going to have this policy, we need to have the benefit of it as well. But I'm going to throw it open because there are a lot of questions on all of those items, all of which, by the way, just to clear something up, as a city council member, I can't change any of those laws. 47, 57, they were done by the voters, and 109 is done by the state legislature. Go ahead.
So not a great question to ask at 10 minutes to 9. So here's some concepts relative to the laws that have been passed by within our state, and they're not all bad, but they're not all good, but they're the laws of the land. I told you that a bit earlier on. One of the ideas specifically in Prop 47 is to keep the violent offenders in jails and the lower grade people out of the jails. And that is one of the concepts, as the councilman said, maybe sold when this was brought up. And then there's the whole aspect of treatment and diversion and so on. The councilman referenced the financing part of it, and the challenges the courts have in getting some bite behind that is a fact of life for us. We are now, there was a reference, I made a reference earlier to an article in the LA Times about felony arrest being down. Yes, felony arrest is down a little bit. Your felony crimes have been reduced to misdemeanors. So you then would have a natural fewer number of felony arrests. I will tell you that, and you know this, you live in this society, we cannot identify, and as a police professional, none of us will sit up here and tell you that there is one factor that has caused or causes our crime to go up or down. And any police professional will tell you there are a number of factors, from weather to demographics to incarceration duration to probation and parole to parenting to schooling to homelessness. The list goes on and on. So I'm not going to sit up here and tell you or respond to anybody's question that because of this, crime is going up. I don't know that, and I can't tell you that. I can tell you that our crime has been going down for a long time, and we've been very, very successful in fighting crime, and we need the help of the community to get crime, or to keep crime at these low levels and make them even lower. Hopefully get them back to where we were a couple of years ago. And that's what we need, and that's what we're asking of everyone.
The laws that have been passed are what they are right now. So the way that in some of the community meetings I've spoken to now is my change in my mindset into addressing crime, both the rise in crime and the perception of the rise in crime by some, and the change in these laws is that we have to make you smarter about being less chance of a victim. That we need to go back to the residents and the business owners and teach you very simple things and shake you sometimes to listen. If you're a business owner, you have to leave your register open and take the money out and leave the till on top. Every single day, crooks break into businesses to steal the cash out of the register. The businesses leave there. We have to tell all of you that have your new cars with your fobs to take the fob out of the car because they get in and they drive away. For all of you that say, now this is real. This is real. For all of you that say, I leave my car unlocked because it's less to replace the change they take from me than the window that they break. Okay. But those are what we deal with. We need to educate you. All those tips we've given you about doorbells and laminated glass and watching out for your neighbor and looking out for crooks and writing down license plates and sharing that information on social media. All those kinds of things can make you smarter. We are arresting more car thieves out there because the officers know the profile of those cars. And we know that they're taking the license plates that they steal off of your car and putting on paper plates or your stolen license plate. So you need to be watching those kinds of things. And we know that if we can get you to share information about crime in your neighborhood, you will be tougher to be a victim of crime in the future. And that's what we want you to do.
Money to drug addicts on the offering.
Thank you. So I just wanted to really thank first all of you for sticking it out this long, letting you know it's 9 o'clock. We're going to stick around for a while to talk with you individually and have dialogue, and that today is this is not the end of the conversation. It is a continuation. But I especially wanted to thank Chief Sherman, Captain Ryan, Captain Vernon, Captain Cortez, Captain Lyman, Lieutenant Colonel. These guys are on the front line every day, making us safer. And all of LAPD that's out here, thank you for being part of the solution and for caring about your community. Have a wonderful night, everybody.